The next day, Lance was gone. He wasn't at breakfast, so Hunk went to go check on him. When he found his room empty, he had Karan page him on the comm. Nothing. "Is he in his lion?" Allura asked. "It's hard to hear the castle's comm when you're inside, and it wouldn't be the first time he spent the night in there, right?" But he wasn't there either, and Red's barrier was up. "He can't be very far," Hunk concluded. "His jacket is still in his room. The guy goes nowhere without it." "You mean he wouldn't run away without it?" Pidge said, an empty feeling starting to fill her gut. "No, I don't," Hunk said crossly. "I would never consider Lance the type to run away. That's totally not him." Shiro listened to them and shook his head. There was something not right. "Guys, I've just confirmed that a pod is missing," Karan joined in sadly. "Left some time last night." "Maybe he just needed to go for a ride and calm down so he could sleep." Hunk's voice was now squeaking. "I mean, at the garrison he would sneak into the simulator all the time at night. Maybe that's what he's doing, and he lost track of time, because this is space, and—" "The pod isn't answering any of my hails," Karan sighed. "We don't have time for this," Shiro said, irritated. "Hunk and I will go look for Lance. Karan, contact the Blades and see if Keith can't come back for a while. If we can't find Lance, then we'll need someone to pilot the Red Lion until we do. Allura and Pidge, try your best with the plan we came up with yesterday. Call Matt and see if his team can't come back you up." Everyone reluctantly nodded and went their way. It took a moment for Karan to contact the Blades. "What do you mean, Lance is missing?" Keith had an odd look on his face that made you wonder if he was concerned or irritated. Karan liked to look on the positive and just assume he was worried. "Not to worry," he said, trying to show confidence he didn't really feel. "Shiro and Hunk will be back with him in no time. We just need you to help out Allura and Pidge and the Red Lion until they get back." Keith stepped back to talk with the other Blade members for a moment before giving a nod. It looked like two of them were arguing in the background. "I'll be there in a little bit. If you find him before I get back, notify me." "I will do that," Karan nodded emphatically. But when Keith disappeared, he let himself sigh a bit. "Shiro?" Hunk's voice trailed off as they stared at the remains of the Altean pod. It was shattered beyond recognition, and they only noticed it because of the scans that told them what it was. "Calm down, Hunk," Shiro said, trying to remain calm himself. A numb feeling was starting to creep into his fingers and his toes. "There isn't a body, so he may still be okay." "A body?" Hunk practically shrieked. "With this damage, there wouldn't be a body! There'd be body parts!" "Hunk, please. I don't see any body parts either. We need to remain calm so we can think about what may or may not have happened. So let's collect as much of this wreck as we can, so we can figure out if it was attacked or if it self-destructed like Keith's and Allura's pod." He gave Hunk a moment to sniff and collect himself before they got to work. The fight was messy. Pidge, though personally messy, actually liked stable and controlled environments and plans. The battle was everything except that. With Shiro and even Keith, there was at least someone around who could see the whole field and give direction. Allura could lead, but there was only the two of them against 3 enemy ships and a base that kept sending out fighter jets. Pidge had developed a healthy disdain for those fighter jets. "You guys look like you could use some help." "About time," Pidge shouted, and winced as her hind leg was hit. "Glad you could join us, Keith," Allura called. "We're keeping the ships and base busy while the rebels are getting any prisoners on board to safety. Valis will give us the green light once their people are out of the ships." "Then they go down," growled Pidge, who was more than eager to let out every ounce of angst that had been building up since that morning. "Got it," Keith responded, and gave Pidge a little room. When he'd gotten to the castle, it was as if Red had been waiting for him. There was no waiting, no talking her into accepting him back, and that scared him. "How did it go?" Shiro asked as Pidge, Allura, and Keith walked out of their lines. "Messy," Allura said, "but successful." "Any news on Lance?" Pidge and Keith asked at the same time. The look on Shiro's face did not give them any reassurances. "Come look what we found." He led the way to a large unused hangar that Hunk and Pidge had turned into their mad lab. Chunks of metal were strewn and grouped all over the floor. "This is what was left of the pod." "You're kidding," Keith said. The largest piece was about the size of a lawnmower engine. They looked in horror at the wreck and tried very hard not to think of anything too gory. And this isn't the worst, Shiro said, sounding like he might be sick. He pointed to a separate pile of scraps. Found blood on those pieces, and we confirmed just a few minutes ago that it's Lance's. Pidge felt her own blood drain from her face. Keith began to look through the pile to examine them for himself. Allura squared her shoulders and said, Shiro, give me the coordinates and I'll take Blue out to scan the area. He might be floating out there. Shiro nodded and left with Allura. Pidge cleared her throat. Keith, you don't think he's, That's what I'm checking, he said, looking at everything. So far I'm not finding a lot of blood, so he could just be injured. But if Allura is right and he's injured and floating in space, then he might need a miracle. He had looked back and caught the look on Pidge's face for the first time. He had given his honest opinion when what she had been looking for was reassurance. Lance, you bastard, he seethed. You're better at this than I am. Besides, Keith tried to amend. Can you imagine Lance at death's door? He'd probably pull instead of push. Pidge snorted and laughed in spite of herself. And with his luck, there'd probably be a no vacancy sign on it, he continued. So we have plenty of time to drag his stupid soul back from wherever. Thanks, Keith, she said. I've been really needy this week, so I'm going to go look for Hunk. He's probably in need of someone right now. I'll pass on your thoughts and jokes. I'm sure he'll like those. Things will work out, Keith said, not sure where he got the gumption to spew such nonsense. Yep, she nodded and left. After a very long search of the castle, she found Hunk in Lance's room. He sat in the dark at the desk, his head bowed over Lance's helmet. Lance's helmet. Pidge turned her head, and, sure enough, hanging on the bathroom door was his paladin armor, freshly washed and ready for the day. They had just assumed that he'd been wearing it. He's dead. She sat on the floor and leaned against the doorframe. He's dead. It was starting to get hard to breathe. He's dead. Their last hope of finding him alive hinged on him having his suit. Hunk walked over to her and sat next to her. He was still shaking, and looking up at his tear-streaked face broke Pidge's control. She buried her face into Hunk's arm and sobbed. They stayed together until they both could control themselves once more. Pidge. Hunk's voice was thick. Why did he leave? She shook her head. None of this makes sense, he pushed. He left his jacket, his armor, and his wallet. And he never goes anywhere without one of the three. Hunk, I don't know. I didn't really pay attention to you guys back in the garrison, and now I'm wondering if perhaps we didn't really screw up. I mean, I can think of countless times I could have treated him better. You're not getting it, Pidge. Hunk gave a mighty sniff and turned his body to face her. Even if he did run away, which I still doubt, he would have taken some things, right? That made a lot of sense. She'd been too busy thinking about how horrible a person she was, she had missed this. I came in here to look for some clue as to why he jumped ship, but I can't find anything. He was back to being depressed. Hunk scowled. Now that she had a question to answer, she felt better. Looking around the room, it was clear that Hunk had only searched the desk, the dresser, and the mattress. It was time for her to shine. She stood and picked her way to the air duct. Nothing. She began to shift through the junk on the floor. Hunk helped. Nothing. She researched the desk and felt around for any hidden drawers or anything taped to the bottom. Nothing. Frustrated, she flung herself on the bed. I hate you, she muttered at the ceiling. Lance couldn't hear her, but she felt better saying it. You really suck. Pidge? Yeah? Let's keep this between the two of us. She sat up on her elbows and asked, Why? Hunk shifted uncomfortably. Well, he said, Lance kept it a secret for a reason. Yeah? And look where that got him. But, fine, she said, falling back down. We'll figure it out ourselves. But the moment things look like they may get hairy, we spill our guts. Right, he agreed. I think we need to go show the others what we found, though. Pidge wasn't ready yet, but she nodded and followed Hunk out of the room.